Welcome back to my channel.
In this video, we are going to see the basic configurations of ASA using CLI, which includes how to configure interfaces with different security zones and how to configure static default route to ASA. We will see how to configure NAT using PAT. Also, we will verify the connectivity from inside network to outside network. We will see how to configure or modify the default inspection policy to allow the ICMP traffic through ASA. Also, we will see how to configure ASA to allow the outside clients to access our DMZ server. Also, we will configure ASDM access to ASA. We will also configure DHCP services and AAA SSH in ASA. This is the topology I'm going to use for this lab. This topology is having three routers, router 1, router 2, router 3, and ASA firewall, and three PCs, PCA, PCB, PCC. In this ASA firewall, I'm going to configure three interfaces with inside and outside and DMZ network. And I already configured router 1, router 2, router 3 with interfaces, IP addresses, and necessary static routes. From router 1, I have configured the default route to reach the outside network. I'm using the router 2 G001 interface as the next hop IP. And from router 3, also I have configured the static default route, which is pointing to router 2 G02 interface. Also in router 2, I have configured two static routes. The one route is for the destination network, this 200, 200, 200, 224/29. That is the network segment between router 1 and ASA firewall. And one more network, destination network I have configured from router 2, that is the network segment between router 3 and PCC. Now we are going to configure the ASA firewall. Before going to configure this ASA firewall, I'll configure HTTP server in router 1 so that in our lab in future we can communicate routers 1 web console from PCB, which is located inside the inside interface of ASA. Now I'll go to router 1 console. IP HTTP server. I'll save these configurations. Now I will open the ASA console. Enable. There is no default password. I'll go to configurations mode. I'll give no for this anonymous error reporting. Now we are going to configure all the three interfaces of ASA firewall. First, we are going to configure the inside interface. That is interface G0/1. I'll name this interface as inside. And next, we have to configure the IP address for this interface. IP address is 192.168.1.1. Subnet mask, 24-bit subnet mask. We have to give no shut. Next, we are going to configure the outside interface. That is G00 interface. So interface G0/0. I'll name this interface as outside. It sets the security level as 0 by default. Any name other than inside, it will set as 0. Now I'm going to assign the IP address for this interface. From the topology, it is 200 200.200.226. Subnet mask is /29. So 255, 255, 255, 248. No shut. Next, I'm going to configure the DMZ interface, that is G0/2 interface G0/2. I'll name this interface as DMZ. This security level, it sets as 0, but I'm going to change this security level as 75, and IP address as per topology, that is 192.168.2.1. 192.168.2.1. Subnet mask 255, 24 bit, and no shut. Next, I'm going to configure the default route from ASA firewall on the outside interface so that we can access all the external networks from ASA firewall. The command to configure default route is route, on which interface we are going to configure outside interface. Then next, the destination network, foreign network, that is 0. This is default route. And default gateway, now we have to give. Default gateway is router 1's G00 interface. 200, 200, 200, 225. That is router 1 G00 interface. I'll save these configurations. Now we will check the interface status using show interface IP brief command. Here we can see all the interface status is showing as up. And we will use one more command, show IP address. This will give all the layer 3 details. Here we can see it is giving the interface's IP address with subnet mask, whatever we have configured. And one more command, show name if command. Using this command, we can see the name of the interface, whatever name we have configured, and security level we have assigned. Next, we will check the routing table using show route command. And this is begin with gate. Here also we can see the static default route we have configured with gateway. Next top IP address is router 1 G00 interface IP address. Okay. Now we are going to check the connectivity between devices. First, we are going to check from ISA to all the connected PCs. First, I will check the IP address of PCC. We will ping to PCC IP address that is located in outside interface, that is a remote network. The IP address of the PCC is 172.16.3.3. The ping is successful now. And next, I am going to ping the inside interface. That is PCB IP address is 192.168.1.3. Sorry, I did not use the ping. This ping also successful. Then next I will ping to this DMZ server. IP address is 192.168.2.3. This ping also successful. So from ASA we can ping all the client devices in different security zones. Now I'll go to PCC from the outside. This PC we will check the connectivity to ASA firewall. We'll check the IP address first. 172.16.33. Now I'll ping the outside IP address of ASA 200.200.200.426. It is having connectivity to ASA firewall. And next I'll go to PCB. I'll check the IP address of this PC. 192.168.1.3 is the PC inside security zone. From here, I will ping to inside interface of ASA 192.168.1.1. It is pinging successfully. Next, I'll open the PCA DMZ PC. This is PCA. We will check the IP address using ipconfig 192.168.2.3. Now we will ping to ASA's G02 interface, that is DMZ interface 192.168.2.1. It is also working. Now we are having connectivity from ASA and connectivity to ASA. Next, we are going to verify the traffic flow from inside network to outside network. From this inside network to outside network, we are going to check. Before that, we are going to configure the NAT, network address translation, in ASA firewall. Normally, private IP addresses are not routable in the public internet. So here we can see from our ASA firewall to router 1 network segment is configured with public IP address. So now we are going to configure NAT in the ASA firewall. I'll go to ASA firewall console now. First, we will create the network object. Inside that network object, we will configure the NAT. So the command is object. I'll go to configuration. Object network. Here we have to give the name of the object. I'm going to give inside net, because we are going to translate the inside network IP address to outside global IP address of ASA firewall. So this object name is inside net. I'll put question mark here. Here we can see the following attributes we can give: subnet, host, and range. We can translate individual host, or we can translate the entire subnet. For this demo, I am going to translate the entire inside network. So here I am going to use this keyword subnet. Subnet is 192.168.1.0, and subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. Next, we have to configure NAT. The command is NAT. I'll put question mark. Here we can see we have to use the parenthesis. Inside this parenthesis, we have to use like this: real interface name, comma, map interface name. So I'll use the parenthesis. The real interface name is inside. So I'm going to write inside, comma, the map interface. The inside is going to map with this outside interface. So here we have to give outside. Then I'll put question mark. Here we can see that we have to specify the type of NAT, static or dynamic. Here we are going to use dynamic NAT. Next, interface or pad pool. For this demo, we are going to use the interface. Use interface address as mapped IP. We are going to use the ASA's outside interface. So I'll use the interface because this is path configurations. Now we have successfully configured the NAT. We will check the configurations using show run object. Here we can see the subnet we have configured under object network, and one more command is show run NAT. Yeah, the NAT and subnet is divided as two configurations in running configurations. Here we can see the network object inside net is used to translate the inside network address. This is our inside network address to the global address of the outside ASA interface. That is the interface we have configured. Now we will check the flow of traffic through ASA from PCB in the inside network to router 1 G00 interface. So I'll open the PCB. Now we are going to ping from PCB to router 1 G00 interface, which is located in outside interface of ASA. The IP address is ping 200.200.200.225. This is router 1 G00 interface. The ping is not working because the default instruction policy does not allow the ICMP to pass through the firewall. Now I'll go to ASA firewall. We can check this using, we'll check the NAT, show NAT command. Using this command, we can check the translated and untranslated hits. This is translated hits are 4 and untranslated hits are 4. Here, the outgoing pings are translated, but the returning echo replies are blocked by the firewall. So one more command, show xlate. That is not showing. Oh, I'll clear the NAT counters. I'll generate the traffic once again. This show xlate command will show the mappings of translated IP. So now I will use that command. Here we can see the ICMP pad from inside 192.168.1.3, and the translated IP address is 200.200.200.226. That is the outside interface IP address of ASA firewall. Now this is working fine. Here ICMP traffic is not instructed, but when we initiate the TCP connection from PCB, it will be instructed. TCP connection, TCP UDP traffic will be instructed through ASA firewall. Let us try that. From PCB, I'll go to PCB again. I'll open the web browser here. I'll type the IP address of router 1 G00 interface. Now we are going to check the TCP connection so that we can open the web console of router 1. This traffic will be allowed. So that is the reason we are getting this authentication window. So this TCP traffic is passed through the ASA firewall. We will go and check the NAT once again. We will use the show NAT command. Here we can see the translate hits increased because we have used the untranslated hits are not increased because it is passing through that. And we will use the show xlate. Here we can see now the TCP connection, TCP inside to outside, 1.3 and 200 This is the outside IP address. So it is working fine. Now we will check one more TCP connection from PCB. I'll go to PCB. Here in the command prompt, I'll do telnet. Telnet is also TCP connection. I'm going to telnet to router 2. So I'll do telnet. Router 2 is IP address is 10.1.1.2. I'll give the password. Here you can see the telnet is working from PCB. So the telnet traffic is also allowed through the ASA firewall. It is allowing the TCP traffic. So once again, if you check in the show NAT, I'll check another show NAT detail. Here we can see inside to outside, it is translated using dynamic translation. Origin is 1.0 and translated address is this one. Even show xlate command also, we can see TCP path. Now the TCP traffic is flowing through ASA, but to allow the ICMP through ASA firewall, we have to modify the policy map in ASA firewall. So I will show the configurations here. Running configurations. Begin with class. Here we can see inside this policy map, global policy class inspection default, the applications to be inspected. Here it doesn't include the ICMP, so we have to include the ICMP here. So we have to configure policy map. I will copy paste this. Under this policy map, we have to include inspect ICMP. Save the configuration. Now we'll see the running configurations. Policy map. Here we can see now the inspect ICMP is included. Now I can do the ICMP from PCB to the R1 G00 interface. Now I'll go to PCB again. I'll ping the IP address of R1 G00 interface 200 425. Earlier it was not working. Now it should work. Now it is working fine. And we will check the IP address of, we will ping to this outside another PCC. The IP address is 172.16.3.3. This is also working fine. Now ICMP connection is passing through ASA firewall, and it is allowed because of we have modified the policy map inside ASA firewall. Next, we are going to configure DMZ related configurations on ASA. Our DMZ network is having one server, public accessible server. So anybody from outside can access our DMZ server. So here we are going to give permissions to this PCC to access our DMZ server. So for that, to access our DMZ server, this PCC needs our public IP address. So what we have to do, we have to configure the static NAT here in ASA. Earlier we have configured PAT. This time we are configure the NAT using static NAT. So I'll go to ASA console now. The same way we will create one object network. network object using object network. This time I'll give the name DMZ server. DMZ server. Under this, we are going to configure. Earlier we also configured subnet, but this time we are only going to configure for this PCA. So we can use the host command, host keyword, host. The IP address of our server IP address is 192.168.2.3. Under this, we have to configure NAT now using NAT command and open parentheses. First, we have to configure the real interface. Our real interface is this one, DMC interface. So DMC, comma, the mapped interface is outside interface. So outside, I close this parenthesis, I'll put question mark. Now we have to specify the NAT type. This time we are going to configure static NAT. Static NAT. Now we have to give the IP address here. We have to map with IP address. So we have to give the mapped IP address. Here we are having the public IP address range 200.224. Here we already used the IP address, two IP addresses, 225, 226 for router 1 and ASA. So here we will use the next IP address from this range, 200.227. Because the static NAT is one-to-one mapping, one IP address to another IP address. High security level to low security level traffic is allowed, but from low security level to high security traffic will be denied by ASA. In our case, now we are going to initiate the traffic from outside, that is low security level 0 to DMC, that is high security level. The security level is 75. So in this case, we have to configure ACL to allow this traffic to be permitted inside our ASA. So what I'll do, in our ASA, we will configure access list. Command is access list. I'll give name of the ACL as outside DMZ, outside to DMZ. Next, we have to give permit. Action is permit. We are permitting, and the protocol is in general we will configure IP specifically, and from our source is any source, any IP address from outside to access our DMC. So our any to host. Which host we are going to do? This is the destination 192.168.2.192.168.2.3. Here we can clearly see in our access list we are using the internal IP address of DMC, but our NAT we are using the public IP address. I'll type enter. I'll save these configurations. Now we have configured the access list, but we have to enable it on the interface. So for that, command is access group. The access list name is outside DMC. I'll copy this. Name of the access list. And the direction of the traffic is in input traffic, because inside. And next, interface. Which interface we are going to apply? That is outside interface. So outside interface toward this direction, inward direction, we are doing this. I will save this configuration. Now we will check the ping from PCC. Now from PCC, we are going to ping the IP address of DMZ server, but we are not going to use the private IP address. We are going to use the public IP address. Static NAT, we have configured that 200, 200, 200, 227. This is our DMZ server's public IP address. Here you can see it is working fine. The DMZ traffic is working fine. Now we will go to ASA and check the translations. I'll use the show NAT command. Here we can see from DMZ to outside, the translation happens. Untranslate hits because this is from outside to inside. So it is translating like that. Next, show xlate command. Here we can see NAT from DMZ 192.168.2.3 and to outside 200.200.227. So it is clearly translated. Here we can see in the show NAT command under the auto NAT policy section 2, we can see the two NATs we have configured. One is the static NAT, recently we have configured. The another one is the previous one, dynamic path we have configured. Here in the static NAT, we can see untranslate hits equal to 12. Translate hit is 0. Pings from inside to outside are translate hits, and pings from outside to inside, outside to DMZ are considered as untranslated hits. Now I will try to ping from the inside PC to this DMZ server. So I'll go to PCB. We'll check the connectivity between that. There should not be any problem because this is the high security level inside and that is on the lower security level. And we are going to ping 192.168.203. This is the IP address of DMZ server. Here we no need to use the static public IP address because this is inside our, behind our firewall. So we have to use the private address. It is working because our inside security level is 100 and DMZ security level is 75. So from higher to lower, the traffic is allowed through ASA. Just simply routed the traffic. The same way, if you try from the DMZ server to inside, it is not allowed because low to high. We will check that also. I'll go to PCA and we'll ping the inside PC. Address is 192.168.1.3. This traffic is not allowed. This is not working. So this is working as expected. Next, we will see how to configure Cisco ASA firewall as DHCP server. I'll open the ASA now. The ASA. Now we are going to configure the DHCP pool and we are going to enable it on the inside interface. So the command for the DHCP is DHCPD and the center. We have to give the address IP pool. The address range is 192.168.1.5. We will start from 1.5 and 1.5 to 192.168.1.50. We will give from 5 to 50 and next we are going to enable it on the inside interface. Now we have created the address pool. Next we have to enable this DHCP services on the ASA. For that command is DHCPD enable. We are going to enable it on inside. Now DHCP is successfully enabled. Now I'll open the PCB. I'll go to PCB. I'll go to network connection settings. In our PC, it is already IP address is statically configured. You can see the IP address is statically configured. Now what I will do, I will change it to get the IP address dynamically automatically from our ASA. So I will assign it to get it automatically. Click OK. Close. Now we will check the IP config here. Here you can see earlier it was 1.3. Now it is changed to 1.5 because we have configured the address pool from 1.5. It got the first IP address from the DHCP server. That is our ASA firewall. This is working successfully, and you can see the default gateway also. It assigned automatically. Its interface IP address, it is assigned automatically. Next, we are going to configure SSH in ASA. For that, we have to use the AAA. So we have to configure AAA to use the local database for authentication. So for that, we have to create the local username first. I'll go to ASA. We have to create local user database username. I'll give admin and password. I'll give Cisco. And one more thing I'll do, username, admin. I'll give privilege 15 to this user. Next, we are going to configure AAA to use the local user database for SSH authentication. The command is AAA authentication. We can enable this AAA authentication for HTTP SSH telnet. Now we are going to enable for SSH. And next, console. Here we are going to use for local database. Suppose if you want to use the Radius and TACAC server, you have to use the server details. But now we are going to use the local database for SSH. Now we are going to configure SSH. For that, we have to configure domain name first. CCNA, I will use this name. You can use any other name. And one more command, crypto key generate RSA modulus key size 2048 I'll use. Now we have to save this RSA keys using write memory. Now we are going to configure the ASA to allow the SSH connections from any host or network. Now we have to decide from which network or which host we can access the ASA via SSH. So for that, we have to use this command SSH, and which subnet or which network we are going to use that. First, I am going to give access for this inside network. So 192.168.1.0, 255, subnet mask 255.255.0, and now we have to give the interface name. Interface name is inside. we are giving access to this subnet, which is located in our inside interface of ASA. At the same time, I'm going to allow the PCC. This PC also I am going to give the access to do the SSH for ASA. We can remotely monitor our ASA. So I'll do that. SSH for IP address of PCC is 172.16.3.3. 32-bit for host address. This is in our outside interface. So we are allowing this IP and this network to SSH to our ASA. Now we will do the SSH connection from both PCB and PCC. One PC is located in inside and the other PC is located in outside network. First, I will go to the PC in inside network, that is PCB. I'll open the PuTTY terminal of PCB. I already opened. Here we have to give the inside interface IP address of our ASA. The IP address is 1.1. Click open. We have to allow the security connections. I am accepting the keys. Username admin and password. Now I am able to do SSH connection from my inside PC from the inside network. The same way I will try from the outside network PC, that is PCC. I'll go to PCC. I'll open PuTTY console. Here I have to give the external outside IP address, outside interface IP address of our ASA 200.200.226. Click open. This security key also I have to accept. Username admin and password Cisco. Here also it is working. Now I am able to successfully SSH to our ASA from the outside remote PC. Next, we are going to configure ASDM access to our ASA. Here we have to configure the HTTPS access so that we can access our ASDM GUI. For that, I'll go to ASA console. We have to enable the HTTP server first. HTTP server enable. Next, we have to configure the ASA to allow the HTTPS connection from the host or any network from our inside network. We are going to configure for inside network so that the PC from any host from inside network can access the ASDM HTTPS connections to our ASA. For that, the command is HTTP. Here we have to give the network details, subnet details, 192.168.1.0. This is our inside network, 255.255.0. We have to give the inside which interface we are going to allow this HTTPS connection. So here we have to give our inside interface name, inside. That's it. Now we have successfully configured the HTTP server in our ASA. Now I'll go to the PCB. From there, we will check whether we can access our ASDM. Now I will go to PCB and open the web browser. Here we will test the connectivity to HTTPS access to our ASA. So I'll type the IP address here, 192.168.1.1. This is our inside interface IP address of ASA. We have to give the HTTPS instead of HTTP. We have to give HTTPS. We have to type HTTPS. Now it is working. I have to accept the security certifications. This is the ASDM web page. From here, we have to install the ASDM launcher. This is how we have to configure ASA using CLI mode.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel.